Welcome, everyone, to another edition of the Wrestling Underground podcast. I am your host, as always, Chad Porter. Joining me is the glorious one himself, Marcus Green. Marcus, how the hell are you?
Doing good, man. Hot, but we here.
Yeah, it's been a weird week in change in the good old United States. We had what was called like a heat shield, like a heat bubble, like right on top of like the Midwest to Northeast. And man, like it hit 95 for like a week with like 70% humidity. At like 7:30, 8 o'clock, when it was like starting to be sundown, I was still sweating. Hated it. Did not
Yeah,
like it. Need me my snowstorms.
yeah. This felt like that episode of Smallville when Clark was having premature heat vision.
Premature heat vision. I mean, he was. I gotta rewatch Smallville soon. That's such a good show. We're here. Another edition of the show. We're back. Got some headlines for you. First and foremost, Marks, we've taken the subscription model too far. WWE is now doing subscriptions with cities. Cannot make that up. Indiana landed the 2025 Royal Rumble, SummerSlam, and WrestleMania events. Although it says Rumble Slam Mania, it's actually Rumble Mania Slam, but hey, what are you going to do? And I'm not happy about this. Not in the least bit. They did a deal, essentially, where they would hold these three events in the Lucas Oil Stadium. Indianapolis would obviously pay up a little bit more to get these three events, meaning that there's probably going to be a floor, a financial floor, that they'll have to pay the WWE regardless of anything else. And this is going to be a new trend with the WWE doing these deals for their biggest events for specific cities, making it harder to see these events throughout the year. Um, yes, I live in Cleveland. Cleveland is getting SummerSlam. That doesn't mean that I'm not aware of how this is going to affect other fans, though, because like not everyone's getting these major shows. These major shows, like even WrestleMania itself, has not been touring as often and going to as many states as it used to. They did 2 years in New Orleans within 4 years of each other. If I remember correctly, WrestleMania 34 was in New Orleans after WrestleMania 30. They're hitting Texas a lot. They're hitting California a lot, Florida. So like these events are already not traveling as well as they should. And while Royal Rumble, I think what was it, Detroit this year? I don't remember where it was. Like while Royal Rumble and SummerSlam have made the rounds with some of the smaller areas, like seeing this as a three-peat deal with Indianapolis is concerning. It's going to be more of this in the future. Less touring events, less fans will be able to see this. More of the tickets are going to be at a higher cost, which is already an exorbitant amount of money for some of these events. I don't like this. I think this is gross. I think this is another WWEism that's going to affect things negatively because not only are you going to raise the ticket prices, make it harder for these people to see shows, but what you're also going to end up doing is essentially forcing cities to lose out on money that they shouldn't have to give up. Like when you think about the Olympics, and this is the same kind of model. The Olympics don't generate money for the cities that host them. Most cities take a loss on the Olympics. I don't know why people still bid the prices they do for them, but that's the seriousness of the situation. The payout to the companies that do these events, the Olympic Committee, WWE, the NFL, like there's always a certain amount that they have to, as a city, have to pay them. And then there's the cost of hosting the event on top of that. And then there's whatever revenue is left over, like concessions, incidental purchases, more like things of like fans going around and spending money in the city. That helps. but it's very rarely going to make up for the amount of money that they have to spend to get the event here. And I feel like this is going to be a problem in the future where a lot of cities are going to start spending money and bidding against one another to such a high level that there's not going to be a profit for the host city anymore because the price has gone up so high. And I don't know why cities would agree to do this. Like, I don't know why a city would be like, yeah, I wanna get in on this, because ultimately you're not going to make as much money. Now, there is the possibility, that you bring your people to Indianapolis, they're in the city, they spend money, and maybe you get more tourism dollars than you ever expected. Possible, very possible, just unlikely. I don't like it. Not only is it a possibility of just drying up the financial well and having some of these cities just spend more money than they can, but you also run into the fact that maybe the fans just stop caring. You know, SummerSlam is going to be 2 nights. WrestleMania is going to be 2 nights. Royal Rumble is going to be moved to 2 nights because, again, like, they are seriously overloading the machine, so to speak. Like, they are diving in too often. They are, saturating the well. This is not a good thing. This is an overabundance. An overabundance leads to bad things. Marcus, do you have concerns like I do about this, or are you kind of intrigued to see how this will go?
A little bit of both. I can definitely see um, the concern from certainly from your perspective. You also had a ground level view of it because you worked some of these events historically.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so you've been able to see it work from a completely different perspective. I'm probably more so probably about, let's say 80-20, 80 being interested in seeing how it goes because, basically just sum up all your great points that you just made is what I've always said about WWE. For them, more is more, not less.
Mm-hmm.
And the larger they continue to get, the more money that they continue to revenue they continue to gain, as we've seen in an exorbitant amount over these last few years. Probably the most significant business move being this Netflix thing that's coming up. This was always going to happen, and to your point about the WrestleMania thing, that was, I guess, the long term thing was that's always go something we was gonna see, I guess, trickle to other shows, primarily their big three or big four, like the SummerSlams, the Royal Rumbles, or what have you. So, again, it's the more is more type deal. For the cities, this could be a unique opportunity if properly capitalized on for places like TNA and other small companies that really line up some of these cities because, like you said, if they're looking at short term loss for long term gain, that may be short-sighted thinking when you and talk about all the other things that the city may be in dire need of besides a super current form of entertainment that may take too long. Like you said, if they're losing money ultimately, and you talk about cities that may need um, some long-term structural improvements, and that might be WWE's thing to the point of we're only going to be able to probably attract the cities who are able to incur that level of revenue to give to us because they don't need to have these big structural things. Like I can understand why New Orleans would want it because ultimately, New Orleans is a city you can kind of go there and fall in love with quickly because of the food, the vibe, the culture, and all that. But they have some significant improvements that they need to make overall to that city. So maybe those were some short-term situations so they can see a long-term thing. Again, like I said, so I get it there, but there are some cities who just won't be able to do this. And I think WWE is aware that it's kind of like how many shows we've seen. I guess we can reference Sons of Anarchy as most prevalent for us. Like the head guys would quote unquote be, I guess, what Sam Cronin dealt guns, right? Not never drugs.
Mm-hmm.
But it's one of those things where it's like, okay, if we got the best premium quality of guns, we can overprice because everybody else's stuff is falling apart. Which is essentially, I guess, in a certain way, the mentality here. Um, so it's gonna be interesting seeing how consistently certain cities keep doing this or if it's spread out. Because at this point, what it's a three package deal.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's but you're 100% right. Like this certain place is not gonna be able to do it. I mean, like we saw what happened recently in Baltimore. They wouldn't be able to do it because they got to build a whole damn bridge situation back up.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and other cities that need severe improvements, as we've seen continuing growth and crazy weather phenomena. So I'm interested in seeing what they're gonna do with it, but it's another classic um, whip the D out on the table, so to speak, thing for WWE.
Yeah, you brought up a good point that I really didn't think about. The fact that this will be even harder now for some cities to be able to get in on this because of other issues they have. Like they might be able to afford to get one of these shows into their towns, but now with all three, that's not going to happen. You know, it's the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer, and the WWE is helping expedite that. And shocking, right? Like Triple H being a scumbag human being. Who would have thought? You know, the dude drove his ex girlfriend into drugs and depression because he got her fired after cheating on her. Like who would have thought he's a bad person? Oh my god. Dude who routinely traumatized other wrestlers and helped people back. And hey, I don't think Rob should go over. Yeah. Who would have thought that dude's gonna help expedite problems in this country? Not me. Not me. This company is riding a wave that it cannot sustain because it's practicing business practices that is anti-fan. It is anti-consumer, and I don't give a lot of stake and stock into the greater pro wrestling conversation of being largely intelligent. Shocking. I don't think a lot of the movers and shakers, especially on Twitter, are fountains of information and intelligence, especially when you're getting punked out by pro wrestlers on a daily basis. So, what's his name? Gareth. Ugh, I fucking hate so many of these numbskulls. But like when you think about like who's leading the discourse on social media, of course these bootlickers and soy boys and bottom feeders are going to be all about this because they consume the narrative. They don't look at the actual issues. They think, oh, lard and sugar is good, must be healthy. Brother, I got some bad news for you. So yeah, there's a lot of concerns about this, and
Yeah,
it's going to be interesting to see how
yeah,
it all comes out.
yeah. It's the interesting thing. It's almost like they're doing with cities what Vince did with the Indies or territories, could I say? Um, but from a different situation. Now, I did want to get your take on because my whole thing with the 80/20, like, what room does this leave for like smaller companies like TNA? What can they do to capitalize from your perspective? Because this could be a huge get if they could, like, hey, you just can't mess with them, but you can definitely mess with us.
I think for TNA, it's TNA, MLW, NWA. Those are probably the three biggest traveling promotions in the U.S. outside of AEW and WWE. I don't think this affects them positively or negatively because there isn't anything holding them back, so to speak. WWE, and I don't know if they still do it, but they did for a while have exclusivity deals with arenas. Just for a point of reference, I'm in Cleveland. We have the Quicken Loans Arena or the Quicken Rocket Mortgage Field House, whatever the fuck we're calling it. It's where the Cavaliers play. And then maybe four blocks east, we have it was known at a time as the CSU Wolstein Center. Smaller venue, let's say for the sake of argument, where the Cavs play the Rocket Mortgage Field House, probably 20,000 seats. The Wolstein Center is maybe 14,000 seats. Both WCW and WWE and those two. When they would come to town, they would run both. WCW usually ran the Wolstein Center because the WWE had an exclusive deal with the Cavs Stadium, which was then called Gund Arena. When TNA came to town in 2011, 2012, I think it was 2011. No, it was 2012 because AJ Styles won the world title at Bound for Glory that year. When they came to town in 2012, they ran at the Wolstein Center. So WWE has had exclusivity deals in the past with certain arenas. I don't know if this is going to continue. So if AEW, when they come to town, I think they came to the Wolstein Center too. What this may end up doing, though, for lack of a better word, is freeing up potential venues for someone like AEW to go to. If they are able to do other shows. Yeah, when AEW came to town in 2012 or 2022, I mean, they came to the Wilson Center. With WWE now doing exclusive deal cities, this may open up opportunities for AEW to do their own set of deals with other towns who aren't getting these major events and holding them in their major events. Like with WWE coming to town in August for SummerSlam, they're going to the Cleveland Browns Arena, stadium, I should say, not arena. So that means that the Quicken Loans or Rocket Morgan's Fieldhouse, whatever it's fucking called, could probably then say like, "Hey, we want to hold AEW since you're not using us. You know, the exclusivity deal's over, and we're going to bring them in." Now they didn't bring in enough people to do the Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse because they only had like 6,100 who came in for Beach Break 2022, which weird thing to do for a January show, whatever. So I think what you're going to end up seeing is AEW maybe being able to capitalize on some of these other arenas that are going to be free now in certain times of the years. And maybe like MLW, NWA, and TNA might be able to, I don't want to say leech, but maybe able to ride the coattails of some of these bigger shows. Like I guarantee you, if you're anyone trying to get into Indianapolis during Royal Rumble weekend, SummerSlam weekend, and WrestleMania weekend, has to be the goal. Like there's gonna be so many more opportunities there, and I know WB in the past has bought some of the smaller arenas out to make sure that that doesn't happen. But eventually, people are going to want more money for that, and eventually they're going to take smaller bookings if it means that they run their chance of having a higher gate. So I think what you're going to see is maybe some of these smaller companies take opportunities here, which I think they should. So there might be some good that comes out of this. I just don't think there's going to be a lot, especially if AEW doesn't get their shit together. Speaking of get your shit together, apparently the WWE finally figured out that Jacob Fatu is good for business. He finally debuted on this past Friday's SmackDown. He dropped like 35 pounds. He looked svelte as hell. And fans went ape shit for him, which goes to show me that MLW has a bigger reach than people realize. So kudos to MLW. Jacob Fatu is fantastic. Marcus, I don't know if you saw this live. If so, what was your thoughts on Fatu's debut?
It was interesting. I didn't think they were going to do it on a SmackDown, but that may be a sign that the other side of this is coming sooner than we think it is. Obviously, with things kind of coming to a head with Heyman on TV, with him literally almost damn near pleading with Punk to help him. You know, the OG bloodline may be coming back together sooner rather than later, maybe at or after we left at Money in the Bank. Who knows? But at this point in time, I mean, they all outnumbered. Of course, again, the big family tree, you know, you look at the tree hard enough and a cousin to fall off. So, you know, I doubt they have a hard time leveling things out. It looks like the younger or the youngest Uso, youngest brother of the Usos may be coming potentially. So that could be a thing. But yeah, it was interesting to see him, like seeing that level of ferocity in the WWE ring. Obviously, like you said, obviously in a more slimmer conditioning, looked like he took a page out of Gunther's book. But yeah, slim and trim, but no less savage. I think he legitimately may have broken Cody's ribs, which I wouldn't be surprised at because there's no solid way to take that bump that Cody did on that table, even with a crash pad. That's a lot of man coming down on you from a significant height. So, you know.
I'm very excited to see where this goes. At least with Jacob Fatu. Now, my concern is the WWE is buzzing right now. But I don't think they're making stars. I don't think Solo Sikoa is... They penciled him in for SummerSlam's main event. Fucking terrible. You got Tongaloa, Mr. Slop Chop right over there. You know, I like Tama. Tama's great. Fatu's incredible. But I feel like they're riding the wave of a storyline that may not have the legs needed to get to where it needs to go. And when it does, like, you're going to have to watch Solo Sikoa in a main event feud with Roman Reigns. Do you want that? Like, that's like the Brexit voting. Like a lot of people in the UK are like, dude, this is exciting. Let's vote for it and see what happens. And then they're like, wait, this was a bad idea. Because then it turns out that they're going to higher taxes, higher tariffs, and all that stuff. And then it's like, oh, wait, this was stupid. And I feel like Solo Sikoa is going to be in the same situation. Like, yeah, like everyone wants to see the Bloodline versus Bloodline war, but, like, Tama Tonga is 43, right? He's not a young man. You know, Solo Sikoa is Solo Sikoa. Not great. Tonga Loa is terrible. Jacob Fatu is incredible, like, legit. But, like, do you realize that this is a limited pool of talent? Like, Jay and Jimmy Uso aren't very talented. Like, they're a good tag team. Because they're basically the Samoan Young Bucks. I wouldn't want to watch the Samoan. I wouldn't want to watch the Young Bucks in a singles match. That sounds terrible. I don't want to see Matt Jack. I don't even want to see them in a tag team. Truth be told, but like these tag teams are made up of guys that are not great wrestlers, and we know they're not. We've seen Jey Uso stumble his entire singles run. Jimmy's maybe better, not by much. And you're going to rely on those guys and Tonga Loa and Solo Sikoa in a feud? And then you're talking about bringing in, what's his name, Hikuleo? Who's now like Tala Tonga. And I'm not even joking about that being his name. It's like Talala Tonga. Like, really? You're going to bring in Hikuleo? And then you might bring in the Usos' youngest brother, or not even the Usos' youngest brother. Who he's what is he? Is he the Usos' youngest brother?
I want to say he is the one with the longer hair. I don't forgot exactly his name. Um,
He got kicked out of Booker T's school. Clearly, he's not exactly the most up to snuff human being, and what we're gonna rely on him. And I'm gonna just point this out: Roman Reigns as an in-ring performer is a C. Like, how many matches are we expecting to have here? Like, how many more civil wars in this family do we need? It's like Game of Thrones.
I,
It doesn't feel like it's gonna end, and when it does, it's gonna be with a whimper.
I I almost wish they pulled this sequel because this is what injected in some energy into the thing when they were still a full on faction and running. If they got outnumbered and instead of another Samoan, they called Sammy back.
That is like what everyone is like fantasy booking is that Sammy would be on Roman and the Uso side,
Yeah.
and like I don't even know like what the let me see if I can find it. Let's see. Okay, so from what I can tell, though it's probably not even going to happen now. The Rock was on one side. That's how people were predicting it. There we go. So one side had it as I don't think it's gonna be this, but like one side had it as like Cody Rhodes, Roman, Sami Zayn, the Usos versus Sikoa, The Rock, Tongaloa. I don't know who that guy is, and Jacob Fatu.
I mean, with that lovely motley crew you lined out, even without Taller Tonga, The Rock and Roman should be able to clear that by
Right?
themselves. By themselves, like it made that's this could. I think this is the muddy version of what you were talking about when it was still when they were still a full on heel faction. Because you had got bored with it. I mean, even before Sam came, I think. So yeah, it's funny because as we're talking about it, they're replaying the clip of him of Fatu debuting. But yeah, this could get messy. The people are also fantasy booking a what we saw with the Judgment Day when they turned on Edge.
Mm-hmm.
That would be an interesting thing if Fatu took over and kind of forced him out and almost back to the other side. That would be interesting.
Yeah. So the one that I saw, it was the Usos fought to Reigns and Zayn versus The Rock, Sikoa, Tamatonga, Tongaloa, and Hikuleo. And that's still not good. Like, even a little. I don't know why we'd want to see that. Now, it might be huge. Like, if you put Reigns and The Rock on opposite sides at some Survivor Series, you're going to sell out. More than likely. But I don't think it's going to be... I don't think it's going to be any good. Reigns is one of the most protected wrestlers in the world, just from the fact that his matches are all the same. And if he wrestled more than once every 3 or 5 or 7 weeks, people would realize that. But yeah, this feels to me like the NWO run. And that's not a compliment, because during the NWO run, I can't think of one great NWO WCW match. Like, at all.
Yeah, and The Rock's my number one guy, but if he comes back, all the spotlight gonna be on him and Roman, mostly him, because that's kind of what he does. Nobody behind him is gonna get any shine.
No. No, like, it'd be perfect if you had like someone like Jacob Fatu, right? Where, however you want to book it, where he goes against The Rock and goes over, like, yeah, you'd make Fatu into a megastar, and he's talented enough to carry that load. Like, look at what he did with MLW. But The Rock doesn't want... The Rock, didn't he win WrestleMania? Like, didn't he go over on Cody at WrestleMania? Or was it Roman?
Yeah,
Like, who got the pin? Do you remember?
yeah, I think it was. I want to say The Rock got the pin in the first night. Then Roman took the pin on the second night.
And like, the man created his own belt. Now, I don't know that he did this, and I want to paraphrase that. Like, this is my assumption, but the man created his own belt, gave it to, who was it, Muhammad Ali's wife, to give to him. That's my working theory as to how he got that belt. But he brought it down to the ring, and it's like he needed to have a belt to look cool next to Roman Reigns, right? Like, this is who he is. He does not like anything overshadowing him. So, like, this isn't going to go the way people hope it is.
Yeah, just let it be. Because, like I said, The Rock's my guy, but he cast a big shadow. Just let Reigns and them come back, do some kind of thing where, to your point, let Fatu kind of take over as he does. Let Tama be his number 2 with Lord and potentially Hikuleo being in the back, and them kick Solo out because he's really not that guy. Let him go back with his cousin and his older brothers, and let it be a situation where it's like, we told you you were being bred for the role, but you ain't ready to be that guy. Get
No.
back in line, back up your brothers with me, and let's take this whole situation out. Because, like, just on personality alone, Fatu could take that situation over. So, because them MLW promos, I mean, just how he talks generally, like, the guy can go off rip. So, if they do it right, it'll be great. But I mean, just talking about The Rock, that whole thing would have to be predicated on this schedule anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So, which is a whole other thing to combat with. So, it's probably best they keep it to the players that can show up consistently without needing to be like, okay, like, how many A24 moves are you finna shoot? That whole thing. Since The Rock's getting back into more serious character acting now. So.
Which is hilarious, because the character he's playing now is known for his heavy steroid use.
Oh my god!
Eh,
Not that he's gonna come in. Not that he's gonna be on camera with the Mahal back.
well, we may see that. It's certainly possible. What's crazy is how much he looks so different in this photo of him playing Mark Kerr. He doesn't look a lot like Mark Kerr in the photo, but he doesn't look like Dwayne The Rock Johnson either. So that's interesting.
Yeah, Which has not been a thing for a long time, considering the fact that, like, I can't deny it. The meme of him in like 4 or 5 different movies, all with similar shirts or the same shirt. You know the one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not good. So I can imagine, particularly after everything that happened with the Black Adam fallout with DC. Um, that's definitely a direction I can't blame him for wanting to go in. But yeah, he probably just needs to come back to wrestling. Only when he can clear that schedule consistently and go with Cody whenever that is. Because even if Cody goes against Randy, I can't see them taking that thing off Cody for a while. He's way too good for business right now.
I could see it SummerSlam, but not before then. Speaking of good for business, Josh Barnett had his Japanese Bloodsport event called Bushido. Josh Barnett, longtime MMA fighter, former UFC World Heavyweight Champion. I think he was the youngest heavyweight champion in the history of the company at the time. He held the event at the Ryogoku Kurikan at Kurikan Hall. Solid event. We had Fuminori Abe defeating Yu Izuka. Hideki Suzuki defeated Hiroko Sato. Eric Hammer defeated Takua. I think I said that right. Nomura. I love pronouncing Japanese names. It's my favorite fucking. It's my favorite fucking hobby. Konami defeated Mayo Fukudua. Fukudua. There it is. Masasaku Funaki defeated Davey Boy Smith Jr. Quentin Rampage Jackson, the former Pride fighter from back in the early 2000s and eventual UFC lightweight champion, defeated Hideki Sikne. Then we had Kazushi Sakuraba defeating Santino Marella. Minoru Suzuki defeating Timothy Thatcher. Hideki Suzuki defeating Eric Hammer. And then the main event, John Moxley defeated Josh Barnett in the longest match of the night. So, there's that. Overall, it looks like I haven't seen this. I'm going to be watching it probably tonight while I do a little work. Apparently, strong votes according to Cage Match. 8.5 or 8.49 for the main event. Sakuraba and Morella got a 7.59. So this seems like a strong, solid outing by all those involved. And I love these shows. It's worked MMA, which is fine. Been a big fan of worked MMA since the UFC started. But I'm kidding. But ever since the Kurt Angle, Samoa Joe match in 2008 at Lockdown in Boston, I've been a big fan of the idea of worked martial arts matches, only because it's far less egregious on the human body. Even going further back to 1995's World WMAC Masters, the World Martial Arts Council Masters. I love that stupid show. It's great. It's karate but pro wrestling. So I'm a big fan of this. No ropes, tap outs, KOs or TKOs only. Great work by all. The reason why this is making the mentions is twofold. One, somebody on Twitter's like, "Oh, I can't believe John Moxley's wasting his career doing this. He got a concussion. He's so stupid." I don't think he had a concussion in this match. He went 22 minutes with Josh Barnett, one of the more stamina-infused human beings out there. He's got great stamina and great cardio. John Moxley's a smoker. Doesn't really behoove you as you push 40 in terms of your endurance and conditioning. And I think John Moxley was just out of breath. I don't think he was dying like the one Twitter dork said he was. But, The other reason I bring this up, Marcus, isn't just because it's one of the coolest events of the year. And wrestling fans should always be on the lookout for a Bloodsport event. But it's the name that Josh Barnett brought up as to wanting to see in Bloodsport, and it made me very excited. I don't think it'll happen, but I'd love to see it. He talked about it to Tokyo Sports in the lead up to the event. And he was asked who he'd like to bring in if he could bring in anyone. And he brings up 3 names technically, 4. He wants to see Shayna Baszler back. He wants to see, what's his name? Oleg Bruton, who currently wrestles for New Japan. Then he wants to see AEW and former New Japan standout Katsuyori Shibata. But the big name he wants to see is Bill Goldberg. Now, Goldberg said he wants to have at least one more match, and he has trained in mixed martial arts for the better part of 20 years, if not longer. That was his whole shtick back in WCW, was that he had the grappling and judo throwings. So he does have some of those elements in his game. Plus, he's just a hoss. I would love to see it. I don't know who wouldn't. It'd be pure carnage. Marcus, would you like to see Goldberg in a no ropes Josh Barnett Bloodsport event?
God damn it! I was up staring at the board and I was looking for Lola Vice. No, just so I can see all that Latina heat wiggle with no ropes. No, but yeah, I'd be interested
You
in
mean
it
no
because I was
obstructions?
that my guy. Um, my guy. But yeah, I'd be interested just because I've read in a recent interview that he did some excerpts that because he had spent a lot of time, probably the same one you did about him wanting to get one last match and not necessarily need to be WWE, even though he thinks he's I guess kind of old that he'll have it anywhere. Um, and ironically enough, I think he might have mentioned overseas when he talked about it, but he also mentioned like he dedicated so much of the latter years of his life to his son, and now that I guess he's old and out the house because we saw that kid go from yay high to basically where Kevin Owens' son is, height wise.
Mm-hmm.
So now that he's kind of out the house, he's kind of getting back to doing him. I think he said he's back to training in Muay Thai and stuff like that. So just seeing him in that different element where he didn't necessarily have to rely on so much of lifting and stuff of that nature. And ironically enough, some of his older stuff when he was, to your point, doing a lot of that judo throwing and kicks and what have you. He actually looked quite proficient at it. So if we can get him doing that, that'll probably end up making him look better than him needing to go out there with somebody like AJ Styles or Gunther and kind of getting blown up quick and not coming out on the best end of it. So um, if they can pull him, I think that'll be great. I mean, the best thing that's about Bloodsport besides the consistency and obviously all the passion and literally the blood, sweat, and tears Josh has put into it, is that it's kind of its own worlds collide that it's become
Mm-hmm.
type of deal. So you can get the Shayna Baszler. And whoever was commenting the John Moxley thing, you think he's gonna spend all that time in WWE to finally get free of them, thrive in AEW, and not go and do whatever he wants to do when that's basically his base personality? You think he's not gonna do New Japan and then Bloodsport and God knows whatever else, even though it's stretching him pretty thin. Like you said, he's an older guy. He may have had some issues, personal issues outside of the ring that he's taking care of, on top of being a smoker. So a lot of things can compound at once, on top of the fact that apparently he has a deep fetish for blood. So, or losing blood, I should say. So, a lot of things can compound, but none of that's going to stop him. So, I don't know why anybody is shocked. This is to him, um, and probably improving his time, not wasting it. But yeah, Bill Goldberg and Bloodsport, and he's probably going to pack on muscle to do so, or maybe he won't, depending on what he wants to do with the Muay Thai training. So I think that'll be great if he can pull it. That'll be really cool.
Well, and just half an hour ago, it was announced via Barnett on Twitter that Baszler's returning to Bloodsport this July. So he clearly has the ability to make things happen. So Goldberg, Barnett, Bloodsport eventually. I'm hoping.
Yeah, and that probably does more to give a good impression on her in ring career than what she's doing in WWE right now. So kudos to her.
Yeah, honestly, they are not the great bookers that everyone wishes they were. But one person who is genuinely a big fan of him, David Marquez. He, for a long time, did the Championship Wrestling from Hollywood and the Championship Wrestling from, because he did like a few offshoots of that. I think he's, what the hell is he doing? I think he's still doing one. It's like United Premium Wrestling something or other. Hammerstone Wrestling. Let me see if I can find it. They were doing shows up until at least last year. Let me see real fast. Oh, there it is. It is the championship. No, that's just Championship Wrestling. Here, United Wrestling Network. That's what it's called. So he's in charge of that. Yeah, they just did a show 3 days ago, so they're still pretty active. It looks like they're in Memphis now. They used to be in California a lot. They do a bunch of shows in Louisiana, not Louisiana, Louisville, it looks like. So, Dave Marcus is a pretty strong booker. I wouldn't say he's like super good, but he's pretty good. He worked with the NWA for a while. In fact, I think he was the booker for the, maybe not booker, but he hosted some of the 7 stages of hell that Adam Pearce and Colt Cabana did during their NWA title feud. What was that, 2011, 2010, 2012, somewhere around there? Like, he hosted some of those events. So, like, he's pretty good at getting stuff done. He worked with the NWA for a while when Billy Corgan had bought and owned it. And they were doing some things under him until he decided that he had had enough. And he 22 Skidoo down out of there. Now it's being reported, however, that he's been hired to head up production with the idea that he's going to be bringing upgrades to the show, which I think they desperately need. I know TNA's upgrades were kind of, yeah, into 2024, and like since then it's been not a mixed bag, but there's been some moments that you wouldn't see with someone like AEW or WWE. But I think MLW's production has been far worse, and I think getting Marquez is huge and will only improve things. According to Mike Johnson, a PW Insider, they had hired Marquez of the United Wrestling Network as the head of production. Johnson writes that the company will upgrade to a larger production setup. This would include television production trucks, starting with MLW Blood and Thunder on July 12th. Sean Ross Sapp then confirmed the news. They also brought in former TNA director David Sahadi, who recently was let go by the company when TNA decided to move more of their production for the TNA brand in-house. So they're doubling up on duties in that regards. So that's pretty impressive. I'm excited about that. It's all good things for MLW, who they lost Fatu. They lost Richard Holiday. They lost Hammerstone. They've lost a few guys in the last year. It's not been great. But they have Satoshi Kojima, who's not only the heavyweight champion, but one half of their tag team champions. Yes, they're building up Matt Riddle to take the belt off of him, so not great. But MLW does seem to be putting the right steps forward to getting people interested in their product, and I'm very excited about that, even if I think Riddle's a scumbag. So, hopefully going forward, these additions will be helpful, which will also go hand in hand with some of their other improvements, like the revelation that what was his name from Lucha Underground, the head of the company.
Oh, it's Dario Cueto.
Yeah, Dario Cueto. He goes by a different name in MLW now, but apparently he's the father to Selena De La Renta's, at least in storyline, and Selena just revealed that she's pregnant. They're not implying that it was Dario Cueto, but it is very Vince McMahon, Stephanie, circa 2003, and I love it. It's stupid.
Minute, who's pregnant?
His fictitious daughter, Selena De La Renta's, who's been with MLW off and on for like 5 or 6 years now. So it's very WWE 2002, 2003, and I love it. It's dumb. I love it. All right, moving on to the next topic of conversation, Karrion Kross. Everyone seems to be over the WWE right now. It does feel like the Attitude Era once again, right? The problem is it's really putting a spotlight on those who aren't over. Karrion Kross being one of them. Someone on Twitter recently said, because he's doing this feud with Kofi Kingston, and I think Xavier was by proxy. And he called Kofi Kingston a psychopath, and he posted this 15-minute video where he's got glasses on and his hair's like combed back, and I'm like, oh, this is terrible. And somebody goes, he's finally putting it all together, and I'm like, it's been, 4 years since you joined this company? You know, he's been fired once before, hired twice, fired once. Stopped and started with different gimmicks. Was NXT champion for a hot moment. Then he was a gladiator on the main roster. And like his wife has been reduced to just another attractive woman. They're really not using either person to their highest possible ceilings, if you will. Like Scarlett Bordeaux had like her own weekly segment on TNA. She was a star in the making, and now granted, there may have been some issues. I'm just saying may have to avoid any legal issues, but there may have been some issues between her and Don Callis that resulted in her leaving the company, Karrion Kross leaving the company, and Callis getting let go. But I look at these two and I think to myself, God, these two should be so much more popular and over than they are, and they're just not. Are you surprised that Karrion Kross has basically been unable to find the legs needed to become a star?
A little bit because he did have a certain vibe about him when he was in Impact, and also they were separate in Impact, um, and perhaps for the better. They thrived in NXT, but NXT is a very specific environment, particularly that version. But he was in. He also had people like Samoa Joe and others when it was like on the tail end of the super indie era to play with. He also had a hell of an entrance. So I think a lot of factors kind of came together and worked for him in that smaller pond, and then you elevate him to the bigger pond, and then he really got lost in translation when he got called up. And then it feels like he's been trying to recover from that ever since. Obviously, he's no longer bald. He's with Scarlett. He's had this whole thing about maybe he was a hitman with the TikTok of it all. And I don't. I'm trying to figure out what people are saying when maybe they're confusing the concept of putting it all together to being more consistently shown, because putting it all together would yield to me more success than what he's had. They put him with the AOP thing, and they haven't really moved the needle anyway. I mean, hell, they lost to the Street Profits and Lashley's crew at Mania, and they really haven't been doing anything big with the Lashley crew. So um, it's sad because you know he's talented. Um, and now that I'm thinking about it, you're talking about how like this great him and his wife look together, obviously. I wonder if they do better. And it's crazy it's successful as a company now that they're on the time now where they aren't trying to expand more in the TV in that way, because I think somebody like Cross and Scarlett could do really well in a great TV production,
Mm-hmm.
and to be like a great like head boss with his kind of villainous wife, as opposed to maybe what they're doing here, because essentially they've just been trying to find something for him to click with and do consistently, and it's just not been panning out, because ultimately, as good as he may be, he's not in anything big. I mean, he's trying to break up what's left of the New Day. That's not, I mean, what? And he's not in any big programs like the Judgment Day or anything related to the Samoans. He's not Gunther. He's not, damn sure not Punk. So he's not really significant on the pecking order right now. And I don't know if there's going to be anything that's done that they already haven't tried that's going to make him get him to that point. So, it sucks because the guy's dedicated. They want it to be in WWE, but to me, it's just still trying to find something consistent. So,
And we'll see if he ever ends up finding that next gear that elevates him, but I'm not going to hold my breath. He's had so many opportunities. He's been in every major promotion, it seems like. It's just clearly there's something lacking. It's a disconnect.
wait a minute. Now that I think about it real quick, because of his background, how do you think he do in some place like Bloodsport?
He's been in Bloodsport. He's done all right.
Mm.
I think he did one with Davey Boy in 2002, I want to say, that I would recommend watching. I want to say it was Davey Boy, because he was going under Killer Cross. I'll look that up. The last story we have is involving Too Cold Scorpio. You may have heard of this at home, you may not have, but the sad story of it all is that let's see, no, that's not the right one. one second. I pulled up his cage match. This thing was in 2002, 22. Maybe not.
Uh,
Let me Google it. I think that'll be a little bit easier. So I want to say it was right after he left TNA. So while I look this up, so sadly, Too Cold Scorpio has been arrested. Legendary pro wrestler, still wrestles even though he's 59. According to TMZ, he was arrested on June 15th after he stabbed a man. The incident took place at a Love's Travel Stop, which is a gas station. I think they serve a lot of like big rigs, like 18 wheelers and stuff. He apparently stabbed a man at the Kansas City, Missouri location. He was working as a security guard at the event and saw a man light a cigarette inside the building. He confronted him. The two got into a fight. Too Cold told the authorities that the man threatened him and tried to grapple with him outside. That's when he pulled a knife and stabbed him in self-defense. He then claims the altercation continued and he stabbed the man a few more times until they were separated. The stabbing victim was taken to a local hospital for treatment. Local police say he was found bleeding from his head, chest, buttocks, legs, and abdomen. The man was also in and out of consciousness while also being transported to the hospital. Too Cold Scorpio was charged with 1 count of first-degree assault and 1 count of armed criminal action. He has been bonded out of jail and pled not guilty, so he's going to head to court later this month, and we'll find out whether or not he's guilty or not eventually. Unless they decide to drop the case, which is very possible. Especially if there's surveillance of him defending himself, it'll likely be tossed. Marcus, are you at all surprised that this man, Too Cold Scorpio, who's known for being a little bit of a, shall we say, eccentric, you shocked that he stabbed a dude?
Not really. Even without the name, I mean, but the name makes it even more. It's insidious. But yeah, I'm not shocked. Too Cold comes off like guys that's had one of those lives where he's gotten into something before, and he likely could have used that knife then. Or something happened where it was like he just not gonna get into a situation again where he, you know, doesn't deliver the finishing blow or whatever. But you can imagine there was a lot of tussling going on. You got a stab wound from your head and your ass. Like,
Yeah.
that's a lot of fumbling going back and forth. So Scorpio was just trying to land wherever he could. It's a shock, but that had to be a hell of a back and forth. But yeah, you would think because you said he was doing security, correct?
Mm-hmm.
It may have been a good idea because I don't know if you've done that or were allowed to, but you would imagine a safer thing would have been some type of form of a taser or something.
You'd think.
Yeah, but sometimes people, I guess, aren't always confident that'll work. Maybe a high grade pepper spray, but some guys may look at that as some form of more an effeminate action, if you will. So yeah, that's just one of those things where it's like you said, if it's on footage that he didn't initiate the altercation, but it's always interesting how those things go, but not necessarily shocking. I remember that story on Dark Side of the Ring. He was not playing with, I forgot who was it on the bus. Yeah, he was not playing with somebody on that bus, and apparently the guy that he got into it with was like slightly medicated, but Too Cold didn't care. So yeah, the guys like Too Cold, guys who are no longer with us like New Jack and others, really just kind of want to leave them people be, man.
Yeah, sometimes you just stay away from certain types of people. I think it might have been Hawk, Road Warrior Hawk.
Yeah, it was definitely a tag team because Tuco was like, no, I kicked his ass, and he was like, he did not kick my ass. It was one of the things. His side outside the truth.
So for Karrion Kross, he had 2 matches on Bloodsport, the first and second events. The first event, he lost to Davey Boy Smith Jr. The second event, he defeated Nick Gage. So there you go.
Gotcha.
All right, we're done for the week. We'll be back next Tuesday for another edition of the Wrestling Underground podcast. You can find us on the website at realnerdcorp.com, REALNERDCORP.com. You can find Marcus on his personal Twitter account at ParadoxKid, PARADOXKID.
That's me.
You can also find him on his other podcast, The True Penny Show, TRUEPENNYSHOW. They're on Twitter at that name, True Penny Show. You can find me on Twitter at Chad Nerdcorp, CHEDNERDCORP, and on the Instagram at Chad's Photo at CHEDSPHOTOHUT. The website, once again, is realnerdcorp.com. The Twitter account is NERDCORP. That's Nerdcorp on Twitter. Check us out there. And we're done for this week. So for Marcus Green, I'm Chad Porto. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for checking us out. Thanks for giving us a chance. Remember, as always, to watch more wrestling. Marcus, take us out.
Good night.